Today, we're diving into a legal question that hits really close to home. When is a promise just a promise? And when is it something more? Something you can actually enforce? Okay, let's just jump right in with a question. Say your spouse promises you a monthly allowance, but then they stop paying. Do you have a case? I mean, can you actually sue them over it? You'd think the answer would be simple, right? But legally, oh, it's way more complicated than you might think.
And here's why it gets tricky. In the eyes of the law, a simple promise is just not the same thing as a contract. Think about it. We make promises all the time, right? I promise I'll take out the trash. I'll be home for dinner. But none of those carry the weight of a real legal agreement. There's this crucial ingredient that's just not there.
So what is that missing ingredient? What's the thing that separates a simple promise from a real binding contract? Let's get into it. Okay, here's the secret sauce. It's all about something called the intention to create legal relations. For a promise to actually become a contract, both people have to intend for it to have real legal teeth. Basically, you both have to be thinking, yeah, if one of us breaks this promise, the other one could actually sue. If you don't have that shared intention, well, it's just a promise. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the law has two totally different default settings here. When it comes to business deals, the courts just assume, yep, of course you intended this to be legally binding. But when we're talking about promises inside a family, the assumption is the complete opposite. The law starts by thinking, nope, you guys probably didn't want this to end up in a courtroom.
Now, this whole idea isn't some newfangled thing. It was actually set in stone over 100 years ago in a huge English case that we still talk about today. It's all thanks to what's known as the Balfour v. Balfour rule.
And this is the money quote right here, from that 1919 case. Family arrangements are not intended to be legally binding. So the court basically said that promises made inside a family are just different. They're part of our private personal lives, not the world of contracts and lawsuits. And that one sentence, it set a precedent that's been followed for decades. And that's exactly what a domestic agreement is. The case itself was about a husband who promised his wife a monthly allowance while they were separated. The court looked at that and said, look, this is a private family arrangement. This isn't a business deal. Okay, but let's dig into what this word presumption really means, because it's super important. It's not some unbreakable absolute rule. Think of it more like a default setting, one that can definitely be changed. So a legal presumption is really just the court's starting position. It's the starting line in the race, you know? The law says this is what we're going to assume is true unless you can bring some serious evidence to the table to prove us wrong. So here's how it plays out in real life. Step 1, a husband and wife make a promise. Step 2, the law's default setting kicks in and says, hey, this looks like a private family thing, not a contract. Now here's the big one. Step 3, if you want to enforce that promise, the ball is in your court. You have to prove with strong evidence that you both meant for it to be a legally binding deal right from the get-go. And all of this really points to a much bigger idea, this divide between our public and private lives. So why does this matter? Why does the law care so much about this line? Here's the bottom line. Courts are really, really hesitant to get involved in what happens inside the family home. They see our private lives as a space where legal contracts just don't normally belong. And this isn't some accident or oversight. It's a very deliberate policy. So why do they stay out? Well, there are a few big reasons. First, there's this idea that dragging lawyers and judges into family squabbles could just wreck relationships. Makes sense, right? Second, just think about it from a practical standpoint. The courts would be absolutely flooded if every single broken promise, you said you'd do the dishes, turned into a lawsuit. And finally, and maybe most importantly, it's about recognizing that a home isn't a marketplace. It's supposed to run on love and trust, not cold, hard contracts. But here's the thing. This whole principle comes from a case that's over 100 years old, a very, very different time. And that leaves us with a huge question for our modern world, doesn't it? In an age of prenups, complicated family businesses, and all kinds of blended families, does this hard line between our homes and the courthouse still work? Where do you think that line should be drawn today?